लग रहा है 12 बज गए हैं, अंधेरा है। मैंने ये काली शर्ट टाइप पहनी हुई है। ऑफ कोर्स iPhone 12 टाइम है यार। माय नेम इज साहिल मोहन गुप्ता, यू आर वाचिंग Warpcore and it's high time I tell you more about the iPhone 12, or as many are calling it, the iPhone 5 2020 edition. Yes, let's know more about the king of smartphones, the iPhone 12, the iPhone 12 Pro, the iPhone 12 Pro Max, the big boy version of it. So let's punch it. Now, most smartphone makers don't change the design of their phones every year, but Apple takes that to a different extreme altogether. For the last 6 years, we have noticed that Apple has used the same design more or less for 3 generations of the phone. This started with the iPhone 6, 2014. Then they repeated that design with the iPhone 6s in 2015. Then again they repeated that design with the iPhone 7 in 2016. Sure, we had new finishes, new glossy and matte finishes and all of that, but they were essentially using the same design. Hell, they even used the same design with a glass back on the iPhone 8 in 2017. But then again in 2017 they introduced the iPhone 10 as well. The first phone with the full screen Super Retina display and the Face ID scanner. Well, the new iPhone 12 represents the first change in the iPhone design since the iPhone 10 in 2017. So it's a momentous occasion and this looks so nice. It's so simple, geometric, yet so spectacular. Now what they have done out here is essentially they have married the best elements of the classic iPhone 4 and 5 designs with the gorgeous iPhone 10 design, which basically introduced this full screen display. On the iPhone 12 you get these straight flat lines which are inspired from the iPhone 5, which released way back in 2013. Yet you get this all screen display which is basically coming from the iPhone 10. And if you look at the iPhone 12 Pro, then you get this new matte finish, and on the side these railings are polished, and they are polished in stainless steel, and you get gorgeous colors also, like this one. They call this Pacific Blue, and this is the snazziest new color in town. It looks so understated, so classy, yet it is so futuristic. It's kind of a love child between dark green and blue, and it looks really amazing. Even this iPhone 12 is quite the looker. Why? Because you get this simple white out here, but you get this matte finish aluminum frame out here which looks and feels so good in the hand. And compared to the iPhone 11, this phone feels way more lighter. It is actually lighter and it is smaller also. And you still get the same 6.1 inch display, but the display also gets an upgrade. Now this is an OLED screen instead of that liquid retina LCD HD resolution screen. But there's a bigger change out here on the iPhone 12 Pro, because gone is the 5.8 inch display. Now you get a similar 6.1 inch display. More or less these screens are same, but this screen has a better peak brightness level, it has better sustained brightness and slightly better. It supports HDR content. You can view Dolby Vision on it, considering these cameras can shoot in Dolby Vision. And overall, it's a fantastic display. Well, the only weakness of all these iPhone displays is the fact that they still operate at 60 Hz. Yes, no high refresh rate out here, but on an iPhone, it's not a big deal because the way everything animates, everything is optimized on an iPhone, you really don't miss the UI fluidity that a 120 Hz display offers. Sure, if you're playing a really graphically intensive game like Call of Duty Mobile, you may feel the pinch a little, but for most people, it's not going to be a big deal. Actually, most people are actually upgrading from older iPhones which had much more inferior displays. So this will actually feel like an upgrade. Well, when we come to the big boy iPhone, the Pro Max, the super flagship that Apple has, well, then we are talking big numbers out here. This is Apple's most audacious iPhone. It is the biggest iPhone Apple has ever made. It's the heaviest iPhone. It's heavier than even the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. And it also gets the biggest screen that we have seen on an iPhone. Now this screen is bumped up to 6.7 inches compared to 6.5 inches on the iPhone 11 Pro Max. And again, it gets all the lovely qualities of the iPhone 12 Pro display, but it is just bigger. But what's different out here is because of its massive size, this spectacular design becomes a little inergonomic. What do I mean by that? Well, these straight lines tend to start digging into the palm of my hands. But if you want this ridiculous screen space, then of course this is going to be the one for you, because for a person like me, I'm editing a lot of documents on it. I'm writing long 1,000, 2,000 word articles on this. In fact, my review for Warpcore was written on this phone itself. Then you get massive battery life advantages. And of course, in the case of the 12 Pro Max, they've got an all new camera system about which I'm going to talk in a bit. So there are trade-offs. This still looks beautiful, and all of these phones now get IP68 water and dust resistance, which is great. And another new thing on the display front that these phones get that no other phone in the world gets is ceramic shield. What is ceramic shield? Well, ceramic shield is kind of an idea what Apple gunned for back in 2015 with the iPhone 6s. Remember, there were rumors that they would have a sapphire display? Well, they don't have a sapphire display out here, but they've got ceramic inside the display, which allows 4x better shatter protection. So if you're going to drop this phone at a weird angle, and if an iPhone 11 screen would have broken, chances are this phone is going to survive. In fact, chances are it would have 4 times the chance of survival. And that is incredible. And by the way, this is not Gorilla Glass Victus, even though this has been manufactured by Corning. This is something superior and unique to the iPhone 12 line. But the real story of these phones, these iPhone 12s, is the cameras. Now, over the last couple of years, Apple has been rather conservative with the cameras. It was only with the iPhone 11 it really upped the ante, introduced things like deep fusion and night mode, which really propelled it at the top of the pack again. Well, the iPhone 12 really extends that lead, and how? Now, on this phone, you're essentially looking at the same camera system that you saw on the iPhone 11, but there are some hardware changes out here that you should take note of. For instance, the optical stabilization system is all new. Now it can stabilize 5,000 movements per second. That makes it 5 times better than the iPhone 11. The aperture is now f1.6 from f1.8 on the primary camera. And at the same time, there is a new lens, a new Apple designed 7-element lens. On the 12 Pro, you get the same 2 cameras and also the old telephoto lens, but you also get a LiDAR out here. More on that in a bit. And on the 12 Pro Max, there's an all new camera system. You get a brand new telephoto camera out here. Now this one has a 65mm field of view and it does 2.5x optical zoom. It's not a lot, but 0.5x, I'll take it anytime. And the main camera, the primary camera, it's a big one. This is the biggest camera Apple has ever installed on an iPhone. Well, this is also the biggest iPhone after all, so that had to happen, right? So this phone has a 47% larger sensor than this phone, the primary camera obviously, which gives it a rocking 87% light gathering improvement over the iPhone 11. That's massive. And you get a new optical stabilization system out here as well. This one is even more sophisticated than the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 12 Pro. You get a sensor shift optical stabilization system, which basically means instead of the stabilization happening on the lens, the stabilization is happening on the sensor itself, which makes it smoother, and the results are quite phenomenal, obviously. On top of this, Apple has improved all of its software trickery. We have Smart HDR3, we get a new version of night mode, and we get a new version of Deep Fusion. And this time around, all of these techniques work across all the cameras on the iPhone. Not just the primary camera, the wide angle camera, the telephoto camera, and also the selfie camera. Really important, right? This means now you get night mode selfies, you get night mode portraits, you get ultra wide shots in night mode, you get night mode telephoto photos. Basically, these two phones are the best camera phones in the world right now. Well, actually now this one is, because this one goes one step ahead. Because of its larger sensor, you really often don't need to engage night mode because its sensor, its hardware is so superior that it can already gather that light without using any kind of software trickery. On top of it, night mode also works faster because of the sensor shift optical stabilization system and because it is already gathering so much light. So generally photos are sharper and they just look awesome. The telephoto lens is also beautiful because the 65mm frame gives you a sense of artistic mystique which was missing on the 52mm lens on the iPhone 12 Pro. And overall, these phones are flexing Apple's computational photography muscle, which is propelled by the A14 Bionic chip, which gets an all-new ISP, which is doing all the magic in software. Because remember, these two phones have more or less the same optical hardware as the iPhone 11. And it also has a 16-core neural engine, so it's doing a lot of AI and machine learning on the fly. Well, the real flex of all of this hardware actually shines through not in the imaging prowess of this phone, but video. The iPhone 12 models are the first cameras in the world to have the ability to record 4K video at 60 frames per second, but with Dolby Vision. Well, these are the only devices on which you can edit this footage as well, because only iMovie for iOS supports editing Dolby Vision content shot on the iPhone 12 series. You can't even do it in FCP, which is, by the way, made by Apple. Can't do it on Adobe Premiere Pro. But sure, these updates are coming soon, but for the time being, this content can only be viewed and edited on these phones. But it is a technical achievement that these phones have the ability to do this, because this kind of content takes a lot of horsepower. You need big, huge rigs to edit this kind of content. Well, the iPhone can do it by being in your pocket. And that brings me to the performance of the iPhone. Already the iPhone 11 Pro and the iPhone 11 is the fastest phone in the world. No 2020 Android smartphone can come close to the iPhone 11 in terms of pure performance. Well, that lead gets extended further by a country mile with the A14 Bionic on the iPhone 12. You can edit 4K video. In fact, the A14 Bionic on the iPad Air can even edit 8K video. Now that is insane. Even though I'm not really dared editing 8K video on this phone, but I have edited 4K HDR content and this phone can handle it blissfully. On top of it, if you're going to play graphically intensive games like Stella from Apple Arcade, they're going to look gorgeous on it. No frame rate drops. They'll give you graphics that will be similar to your PS4 or Xbox One, and the phone will never really heat up also. This phone is flying. It's flying in outer space at warp speed. No other phone can do this. Don't really worry about the performance of this phone. In fact, there's so much headroom in these processors that if you're coming from an iPhone 11 Pro, then you will not really notice any kind of performance bump. Actually, this extra headroom is meant for long-term usage. You can use these phones easily for 4 to 5 years. And when you sort of think about using this phone for 4 years, then suddenly the 1,29,900 price point doesn't seem as steep. It's basically around 30k a year. That's not too bad. For 30k, you can get a Pixel 4a. And this is way more of a phone. Now, when Apple announced these phones, they really did not talk much about the battery life on these phones. And like I said, these phones can do so much. They've got such powerful processors, and they also support 5G. So you must be thinking these phones would guzzle battery. Well, that is not true. This phone is giving me around 8 hours of screen on time, and this is the standard iPhone 12. Well, the 12 Pro also gives me similar screen on time results. And these phones last me easily through the day, giving me around 15 to 16 hours without breaking a sweat with heavy duty use. Well, then let's talk about this one, the elephant in the room, right? This one provides true 2-day battery life. How can I tell you that? The battery size is actually smaller than the 11 Pro Max. It's around 3600 mAh or something like that, which is like sickly in terms of what you see on phones from Xiaomi like the Mi 10T Pro, which is giving you a 5000 mAh battery, or Samsung Galaxy M51, which has a gargantuan 7000 mAh battery. Well, Apple's chip is amazing. The A14 Bionic is the world's first 5nm smartphone chip, which means it's going to be wildly more efficient. At the same time, these displays are getting more efficient. Same time, Apple is now using Qualcomm's modems, which are way more efficient than Intel's modems, which were in the iPhone 11 and the 10R. Well, that's why this phone will give you true 2 days of battery life. I'm seeing upwards of 10 hours of screen on time on the Pro Max. And in terms of use, can easily get around 24 to 25 hours on a single charge without breaking sweat. Well, the one thing that these phones don't do that some of the other phones do is provide you insanely fast charging. These phones only do around 18 watts of charging. But the problem is that Apple doesn't provide you a brick anymore in the box. But they do ask you to buy this. They call this MagSafe. Remember that charging clamp that used to come on the old MacBooks? If you would walk through the wire, the MacBook would not fall down. That was called MagSafe. They killed it when they introduced the new Macs, which had the Type-C ports. Well, MagSafe is reincarnated in form of a unique wireless charging solution that works at 15 watts. But optimally, it works only with the Apple 20-watt charger brick that you need to buy separately because, again, the brick is not in the box. Yes, no brick in the box. But still, I can envision this to be a very elegant way of charging these phones, but a phone like this charges quite a bit of time. It takes more than an hour to charge the Pro Max. In fact, it takes more than an hour to charge the Pro as well. And that's a little bit of a stinky point, but slow charging is actually good for the health of your battery. So there's some food for thought. And another thing that this phone doesn't do is reverse wireless charging. I don't know why, but maybe Apple will provide it next year. But what I can tell you is Apple is not getting rid of the Lightning connector. If they had to do it, they would have done it this time around. And the fact that MagSafe is here tells me Lightning is going to be around for another year or two, and then it will disappear into nothingness, and all you can do is this, MagSafe. Yeah. But that's how Apple rolls. And soon, probably we'll see many other smartphone makers like Samsung roll this way, because the industry has been moving towards wireless charging for the last couple of years, and it has gotten a huge push from Apple ever since they introduced wireless charging with the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 10. Well, finally, 3 years down the line, we have got an Apple branded wireless charger because, you know, MagSafe, right? You know, these are phones, by the way. It's an iPhone. you do this with it. Yeah, even if it's on WhatsApp. Well, for the last couple of years, Apple was using Intel modems. They were embroiled in this ugly battle with Qualcomm. That's why they never used Qualcomm's modems. And Qualcomm makes the best modems on the planet. And that's how these phones also get 5G capability, sub-6 5G. Even though there is no 5G in India, it may not be here for a couple of years, the way things are going. But the one thing that's highly improved is 4G connectivity and call quality because of this Qualcomm modem. And it's got a feedback loop to better battery life as well. The big deal out here is this modem. I can make calls. I've been using this phone on a Vodafone SIM. I've been using this phone on an Airtel SIM. And I've been using this phone on a Jio SIM. Yeah, all the three bad boys are here and the call quality is fantastic. And that's happening because of that Qualcomm modem. So finally, we have iPhones that sound as good as Android phones. And even though nobody is going to talk about it in India, when you have such shitty connectivity in smoggy Delhi, that's why we are shooting in a basement, not in the great outdoors, because I don't want to choke to death. Thank God for Qualcomm. Yeah, Apple has just said that. One more thing that makes this phone so innately enjoyable. I've already spoken about the display and the fact that the 12 gets a great OLED screen finally. It gets this Super Retina XDR display over the Liquid Retina HD resolution display. Well, these phones also get great stereo speakers. And if you're like me, watching Star Trek Discovery Season 3 or The Mandalorian Season 2 is going to be awesome. It's great on this phone. It sounds beautiful. And audio-wise, it even supports Dolby Atmos. And if you're going to use the new AirPods Pro, then spatial audio also is happening, provided the content is supported. On this, it feels slightly plusher because of the matte finish on the back. But on this, it feels like a home theater in your hand. Screen is huge, but the speakers are also bigger, they're louder, and their bass packs a wallop. So everything sounds nice and clear, but it's really punchy. So yeah, these are small details that Apple cares for, but no other smartphone brand cares for. And by the way, I have shot videos for Car and Bike on these phones, and I've recorded the voiceovers on these phones as well. So the microphones are also fantabulous. So if you go into the future when Warpcore is back with a few gigs, then you should be using an iPhone 12, 12 Pro or 12 Pro Max to be recording and bootlegging those videos, because these phones have awesome microphones and they will not sound distorted like Eddie Van Halen's guitar while someone is playing Deep House. Now, there's no denying the fact that these iPhones are super expensive. They are not made in India, they are imported, so they were bound to get expensive because of the increased GST and taxing in India for imported electronics. Well, even at 69,900 rupees, this is a hell of a phone. Only if you are upgrading from an iPhone XS, maybe not an 11. And the reason for that is the 11 is still very fast. Hardware-wise, the cameras haven't changed much, but still, this is quite an awesome phone. You won't regret upgrading from the 11. The reason for that is the display is a huge update. The camera can also feel like a huge update, particularly if you use the wide-angle camera a lot, and this design is just so crazy awesome. So, there is definite value here with the 12. When you think about the 12 Pro, then it's kind of the orphan child. Why? Because it offers more or less same capabilities as the 12, but with just this swanky new design, LiDAR and a telephoto lens. But still, it costs 1,19,900 rupees. for the 128GB version, admittedly, but that's a lot of money. And we are in a pandemic right now. So maybe you can give this one a bit of a skip. So the other choice is on the big boy. This one is actually the easiest one to gauge. If you want the crazy battery life, if you want the crazy camera, if you want the massive screen, then this is the only option. And if you're looking at all the big screen phones out there, even though some feel better in your hand, nothing feels as special as this one. You know, a couple of months ago, I called the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra the Louis Vuitton of smartphones. Well, these iPhones go way above a Louis Vuitton bag that's been made in China. These iPhones are, particularly the Pro models, they feel like Rolls-Royce sedans but with Ferrari engines. And this one feels more like a Porsche with a Ferrari engine.